Hey, it's Jake. Who needs 30 seconds? Welcome to the show. My name is Jake. I think I said that before, but I'm saying it again, repetition for emphasis. And today we're going to be talking about the Shepherd the Flock of God book, the Secret Elders Manual. Now, a couple bits of business up top. I've gotten some comments and emails from active Jehovah's Witnesses who don't like the fact that XJWs call it a secret elders manual. They think it's not a secret. So we'll get into that. And the other bit of business is that this is a live show. So not the typical upload on the channel. It's a bit more laid back, more of a conversation than a lecture. And by conversation, I mean me rambling for a long time while interacting with chat. So, if it's not your thing, that's fine. A lot of people like to throw these on in the background as they go about their daily business, while they're cart witnessing. Maybe they'll just kind of have a headphone in discreetly and listen to this. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing that's happened once or twice. But thank you for tuning in. And I'm going to try and keep this to a tight 90. I'm going to try not to go on for too terribly long. And we have a lot to get into. Thank you so much to everybody who's in chat right now. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that business. But first, most importantly, one of the things that I wanted to do before we get into talking about the Shepherd book was to actually play some clips from a recent video from the Falling Tower, aka Matt. And wouldn't you know it, it turns out that he was available to hop on the show a little bit. So this is a former elder who makes a lot of great videos, and I think that that's going to give us some context. And if nothing else, it's going to make it so that I don't have to be the only person that talks the whole time. So Matt, welcome to the show.
Hello, good to see you again and be back on.
Yeah, I don't like this layout. Let's do a little bit of this, except I lean in a different way. Okay, perfect. How you doing, Matt?
Pretty good. Just finally getting back onto doing filming stuff again. I finally got all this stuff kind of set up behind me. So
yeah,
just trying to be regular with it, like all you guys.
I always like to keep regular, and that's something that we like to talk about is bowel health on my channel. Unironically, that comes up a lot, and you want to stay regular there and in your YouTube uploads.
Yeah, and that was what I was talking about. So
yeah. Oh, I know. You and I have a lot of conversations about how we stay regular. You hit a certain age, and that's what you talk about.
Yeah, precisely.
I don't know why, but this is reminding me of a story, which is that I went on my 8th grade DC field trip. This was the one really worldly allowance I was given as a witness. I don't know why my parents thought this was appropriate, but they did. So I was allowed to go, and we stayed in a hotel room, and our wall was shared with our teacher chaperones of the groups. We're like, oh, let's listen in and hear what they're talking about. We listened in, and it was just two adult male teachers talking about their dumps the whole time. We thought we were going to hear some really fun stuff, and they're like, man, these days I take a dump like 3 times a day. And that's what it ended up being.
Well, it's funny. I just got off the text message back through another ex-elder that I'm friends with, and the last message he sent me just before I hopped on here was like, "Man, why do we sound like we're so old?"
I know.
So,
now, was this how I planned on starting the show? Just talking about people taking dumps? No, but you never know. This is live, and later I was thinking of trying a little call-in situation. So I don't know. How does that work?
I can't see the chat right now, so I have no idea what's going on, but I'm sure everybody just loves it.
People are loving it. People are simping for you specifically, and people are saying that your counter apologetic series is great, and I agree. It's one of my favorite things. Just two bros chilling on a live stream talking about bowel movements. So there you go. Like I said, tight 90, not focusing too much on chat. Okay, so Matt, you just did a video that was really great, which is entitled PSA/warning to all elders and Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was watching it earlier, and I was like, oh, this like ties in really perfectly with the Shepherd book. The Shepherd book is the Elder's Manual. This is something that you were given when when you become an elder. Uh, as a witness, you were somebody who reached the rank of elder. What was your first reaction to getting and reading the Shepherd book for the first time?
Well, I obviously, so I have relatives who were and are elders. So growing up, I knew that the elder book existed. I have run across people that have no idea, and they swear up and down that, oh, there's no such thing as a secret book. And but I always knew it was there. But I think one of the common interesting things that I find out with other ex-elders that I know is, for probably 99% of us, the very first thing that we do when we get our book is we go to that chapter on judicial sitting. Just, it's almost like to make
Yeah,
sure, like, oh, wait a minute, have I've ever done anything that I didn't realize was judicial and I should have come out about it.
yeah.
And like, and reading, so that's kind of like the first thing that you go through to kind of prepare yourself for what's happened. And then, and then you get that sigh of relief of like, oh, okay, thankfully I've never done anything that would have put me in the judicial hot seat per se. But then you also kind of learn about the things of the little caveats for, if you know the rules as an elder, that's like, oh, even if you did do something, just sit on it for like a couple of years, then be really contrite and pretend to be, or not pretend. At the time, as a PME, I would have been very sorry and repentant. And this is like, if you do that, you can get away with it. But the thing is, of course, your regular publisher has no idea that there's those little rules in there that they don't want you to know about.
Yes, that's exactly the kind of thing that I was wanting to get into. That's so interesting. So yeah, so one of the things that I brought up right up top, so I guess I should mention this, is I have gotten people that have said it's not a secret elder's manual. Everybody knows about it, but that's really not true. I definitely experienced, even as a witness, people that didn't know about the Shepherd book. And when you think about it, like I knew about it because my dad and I had like yourself. I had people in my family that are elders still currently and were growing up. And even as a servant, you get to be a part of the circuit overseer meetings with the elders and the servants, which is a very privileged, special thing. I won't get too far into the weeds. And they will occasionally reference, elders. If you have your Shepherd book, open up to this page. But it is definitely a thing where, if you're a woman in the organization who is not married to an elder, friends with an elder, or like your parents or your brother is not an elder, then like you wouldn't really have a reason to know that it exists.
Yeah, and even going along with that, I have like a family member of a family member who they woke up and talking to their spouse who used to be an elder. In their conversations, she, as a woman, she was like, "Wait a minute, did you know that they have this secret elder book?" And he was a believer and everything. He's like, "Oh, it's not a secret book or whatever." And when I found that out, I was like, "Oh, really?" Then if I were standing there with him, I would have been like, "Oh, okay, well let her see the copy of it. Let's have her read it and see what happens. And if you don't have it, have her go ask one of your elders and let's see what they say." And of course,
Yeah.
they try to make it sound like, I don't, hey, if it's secret, just own up to it and say, yeah, we do have a secret book. I don't know why you have to deny it.
Yeah, this is by the way, I wanted to shout out Wally. Thanks for tuning in. And hey, Caleb, not Wally, not to immediately undercut my shout out to you, but actually W Caleb ponied up the bucks, so I don't know what to tell you. But I thanks for tuning in, Wally. Usually I've been streaming on our co-streaming channel, JW Stream, but I wanted this one to go ahead and stay on the channel because I realized I've actually never really talked about the Elder's Book, like in any kind of
Really?
yeah, not really. Like it's definitely come up in passing in a few videos, but I've never like done some kind of like deep dive into it. So I figured, oh, this actually might be good as a thing. This is interesting. See here, to our point, Kim Barber says my dad was an elder and mom was a regular pioneer my whole childhood, and I never knew about the Elders book until the last couple of years after leaving the org. So that's super interesting. And
Yeah, well,
that yeah.
to go with that, another thing. So I was married at the time when I was in. And I remember even my wife, the coordinator, had to kind of pull her aside and explain to her, like, look, there's going to be this book that he has that you don't want to read it and look into it. That's just a confidential thing. That's just for him to help him deal with those matters. And then also was the conversation about, sometimes your walls are thin in the house. So if you hear that he's on a phone call, try to put on your headphones and go to a different place, that whole kind of thing. So elders' wives, this might not happen in every case, but in my case, when I was appointed, that was definitely a conversation that was had.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I know that my second school buddy, Ben Ford, in one of his videos, or maybe it was the podcast, he talked about he was in the literature and shipping department at the Bethel branch that he was at. And the sisters who would work in the printery were not able to deal with that book. Like, even just like printing the book, they might see a page, or like if they were shipping something, they couldn't touch that particular box. So that's kind of how intense it is. And let me see if it'll let me pull this up here with both of us. Yeah, okay. So like, along with this, there's this section where it says, like, this publication is copyrighted and confidential. So, oops, first of all, I mean, this literally and by the way, if you want to follow along at home, ladies and gentlemen, this is on avoidjw.org, one of the best resources that we have. It's got all the leaked publications on it. And it says it is issued to each appointed elder. If an elder is deleted for reasons other than moving to another congregation with a favorable recommendation, he should turn over this publication to the Congregation Service Committee to be destroyed, and any electronic copies in his possession should be deleted. So that's how intense it is. Oh, wait, did it disappear?
I still see it.
That's weird. Okay. Sometimes, like, if I'm looking at the preview screen, it won't necessarily show up. Okay. So yeah, that's like destroy if you are deleted as an elder. Turn in your gun and badge.
Oh, and I did that. I turned mine in, and then I did so that in good conscience I could say that I did it. I turned mine in, and I deleted my electronic copies, and then of course I just re-downloaded them, immediately afterward.
Did they do the thing? Did like the coordinator walk up to you and like kind of give you this like look you up and down, reach up and just like rip the jw.org pin off you too, kind of like they do in movies where they rip off the badge?
It's one of those where, again, there's a lot of people that kind of, I've gotten feedback that struggle with how I talked about the elders in my former congregation. Like, I was all really good friends with those guys, super sweet group of elders, at least at that time. I don't know what it is now. But I handed it to them. They were very, because when I stepped down, I played the PMO card for almost a year. And so handing the book over to them, they were actually kind of sad about it. And he was like, "Oh, thanks." And I had my whole bundle of keys, and I was the secretary and our treasurer for the operating committee. So I had like my gigantic bundle of stuff that I was able to hand back. And I was like, "Here you go, have fun." And so it wasn't a big hubbub there, but yeah, they were fine about it. And but going back to what you said, I don't even know if they still do it. And I should actually ask some of the elder guys I know. Way back when I was appointed, when going back to the secrecy aspect, they also handed us a letter that talked about what would happen if you wanted to rebind your physical copy, of how a servant was allowed to do it. But he had to be supervised, and he could not be looking at the pages. But it was basically then stated that a woman is essentially, she's not allowed to see or touch this thing. And so it was another confirmation of like just how secretive it is.
Yeah, I remember that, because this was definitely a thing, especially when there were more like physical publications. Now, so much of it is, people have it on their iPads and such. But it was definitely a thing, especially during the book study era, that I remember, like, people would go to the Office Max or Staples or whatever, and they would kind of get the like ring binding on their like other publications, like get the cover laminated, get the binding so like you could easily like turn the pages and all that stuff. There was a real culture of binding books in my local congregation. So there had to be direction about like, well, who's allowed to bind the Secret Elders Manual? So silly, so much esoteric stuff. And that I wanted to, that kind of brings me to this whole thing. So what I was told by my dad was that, and this is what he told to my mom, was like, there's nothing in the elders book that you can't find in the publications. It's just reference,
Right.
it's all just references to publications and stuff. And that really isn't true. And it's not that there's so much like salacious secret goat sacrificing stuff in it, so much as there is, like you mentioned, that there are like kind of loopholes that exist, like specifically for elders, even that you just wouldn't know. And I think one of the reasons why you and so many other elders turn to the judicial committee section first is you don't know a lot about judicial committees as a witness. Like
Nope, not at
before
all.
you were an elder, I was trying to think about this like throughout my day because I knew I was going to stream about this. I was like, I feel like the only thing I knew was that's like, okay, you're in trouble. Like the elders are going to talk to you and you might get reproved or disfellowshipped. But that's literally the only thing I knew. But if you look at the section, let me see if I can get this pulled up here. But like the section on judicial committees and stuff, where the F? Oh, there was a whole other page of contents. That's why. I was like, there's not a lot of chapters in this new edition of this book. Yeah, okay. Determining whether a JC should be formed.
Yeah, the procedure stuff is 15 and 16.
Yeah, okay. So like, but look at this. Like, look at this. Offenses requiring review by the elders. And there's all of these subheadings, bullet points. And each one of these has subheadings, bullet points beneath that. Like, look at all of this stuff that, like, of course, you don't know anything about this. Like, you hear about apostasy kind of in the abstract, but here's a whole section on what apostasy is, what constitutes apostasy, blah, 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 blah. How to gather evidence.
Well, even like with some of those, as detailed as it is, there are some things that still make no sense. Like if you read the gambling section,
Yeah,
it basically
let's look at the gambling
is like,
section.
it's kind of like, you've been told your entire life as a witness of you don't buy lottery tickets, you don't do whatever. And at least as the last time that I remember reading it, it was like, if it's a petty gambling like lottery tickets, then you can just give some counsel in it. It's not necessarily judicial. But then there was that line that I've had conversations with other elders of where we talk about like, okay, well, I don't understand this. What's the line? And we all at the end were just like, I don't know.
This was okay. So this was so interesting to me reading this upon waking up because me and I'll take this off the screen briefly before we go through this, but like me and some brothers in the local congregations who were tight with me and my dad, mostly elders, all at least ministerial servants. We would go on like a baseball road trip every year. We would do a road trip. We wanted to hit like every major league, stadium in the US. And we would go to some minor league games and stuff. And it was just fun time driving around. And we went to Kentucky one year, and Churchill Downs, which is where they hold the Kentucky Derby and all that, horse racing for the layman. I don't know why I felt the need to keep explaining Churchill Downs. They were having pony races. You could get it for like $5. And we're like, are we allowed to go in there? And we did. And they were having these kind of hush conversations, but like, are we allowed to put some money on the horses? And I was like, I wonder why this is even a conversation. And what I didn't realize is, like you said, this really is like, if you're a witness, yeah, gambling, wrong. Of course, we don't buy lottery tickets as a witness. And what it says here, though, is like elders do not generally involve themselves in what an individual does with regard to petty gambling solely for entertainment. So first of all, what? They generally wouldn't involve themselves? However, if such petty gambling affects his spirituality or becomes a cause of stumbling for others, counsel should be given. And if it's like, if he does not respond favorably to the counsel and his conduct continues to have a negative effect on him or others, he could not be viewed as exemplary in the congregation. And if the gambling reveals a course of greediness, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of stipulations where I just felt like, that's like black and white as a witness. We don't gamble. You would not put money in a slot machine, wouldn't play the lottery. That's pretty crazy.
Absolutely. And what was kind of dumb is after reading it, I'm like, well, technically, I would have never done it as an elder, just because I could set the example.
Yeah, the optics.
But of like, okay, you mean actually it was okay for me to get lottery tickets, and if I won, I would have just done the whole like, oh well, I'll give half of it to Watchtower, and then I'm sure they'd have no problem with it whatsoever.
Well, I think you stumbled upon exactly why they have an allowance for gambling, which is, I am sure that it has happened once or twice, and they realized, we probably shouldn't discourage people from doing a thing that might give us a bunch of free money. If somebody wants to, win the Powerball and then give us, $500,000, who are we to say that we can't do that? Like, yeah. Oh, okay. Very, very interesting point here from Jules 2.0. A notable omission. Shouldn't it be like, if the gambling is negatively impacting him and his family, help him get help? No, there's nothing about him getting help. There's nothing talked about gambling being an addiction, and certainly not anything about how his family feels about it. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. At least let's double check this to make sure I'm not giving them short shrift. Yeah, continuing in employment directly involved with gambling, or employment making him a clear accomplice, or accomplice is such a strong word, or promoter of gambling, would be subject to judicial action, usually after being allowed 6 months to make the needed adjustments. Yeah, the freaking family does not come into this at all. So anyway, let me get your thoughts on that, and then that brings me to a whole other thing.
Well, I just the whole, it's all just so stupid. But I'm in my head. I was kind of bouncing down to number 33, which reminds me of a funny story I got from a I think this was a district and circuit overseer that came through, and they were talking about a case of like where they had to go in retroactively and reinstate someone that had been wrongly disfellowshipped. Because some group of elders had read all this and they had put into the category of gambling, they put like buying raffle tickets as a part of it. And so this sister at some point in time had won a pickup truck or something like that. And they were like, well, you need to give it back. And she's like, no. She's like, I didn't gamble. I didn't put anything down. It was literally just like a raffle ticket that someone gave me. Right. And so they just fellowshipped her. They had to go in and correct the whole thing around. And it's just like, you put this kind of power in the hands of elders, and making them read these stupid little bullet points here, and it's just so ridiculous what can end up happening just based on their reading of these little paragraphs here.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is kind of the thing that I think is a good springboard into like a larger conversation about this book, which is one of the notable things about it. So like in the section we are in, greed, gambling, extortion, it will have scripture saying, well, this is why greed, gambling, and extortion is wrong. But when you get into basically literally anything else about like the responsibilities of the secretary or the existence of a secretary to begin with, no scriptures here. This is all just kind of organizational bookkeeping and nonsense. It's bureaucracy. It's all just kind of the day-to-day bullet points of how to run a small business / religious organization. And that's one of the things that
95% of it.
Yeah. Like other than
like 95% of it is absolutely the most boring thing you've ever read. But it's like that. It's like absolutely. That last 5% is what it's like, oh, this is crazy.
Right. And like, it goes to that thing of like, this is an organization. Everything we do is based on Bible principles. But if you were to ask somebody to explain the Bible principles behind 90% of this book, they would only point to the one scripture that says, let all things take place decently and by arrangements. And my like, which now, like in hindsight, which by the way, I just a real shout out quick to any singles watching. We got a really cool sponsor for this week. No, I'm gonna block that user. No, so shoot, my brain died. What was I saying? I got distracted by 69xxx.site.
Boring elder book and all that. I know I kind of derailed you into that whole thing with the gambling bit. So if you wanted to jump back onto your whatever plans that you had.
Yeah, no, I think like that's one of the things that was kind of surprising to me is like, oh yeah, the decently and by arrangement scripture, like that's really not a particularly specific set of directions. Like decent, it doesn't even sound like it has to be all that good. It's like, it's like decent, have it be vaguely arranged. But if you are part of an organization that is really concerned with hierarchical structures and keeping certain people in charge, then you kind of have to mandate every single little thing. And one of the notable things about Crisis of Conscience, the book by former governing body member Raymond Franz, is he talked about just kind of the grind of you would get together for these meetings with the governing body, and it would just be local congregations asking like, how do we handle this? Is this a disfellowshipping offense? Is this a disfellowshipping offense? And what would probably be best is for something like this, just be like, who cares? You know, try and not stumble anybody. Follow your Christian conscience. Who are we to dictate what people do in the privacy of their bedroom? But what you get into with this kind of meticulous control over absolutely every little thing is like, okay, circumstantial evidence for cases of adultery. Let's get into this. Like really specific minutia of every tiny little thing. What was your reaction to this? Like, did that stand out to you when you read this, or at the time were you just kind of like, okay, well, this is just how we do things?
I think I just kind of accepted it because as a witness, you just get so used to there being all these little rules. And it's just kind of like, oh, if the faithful slave governing body says it, then this must be right. This is what Jehovah wants us to do. But one of the things that was kind of interesting to me when I became an elder was that when you get in elders meetings, you then find out that it kind of acts in a little bit similar way to how the court and judicial system works, in the sense that instead of basing everything on scripture, and if it's not said in scripture to just be like, hey, we don't know, just act on your conscience, what ends up happening is precedent that was set by a previous decision by the governing body, by circuit overseers, by whatever, that then turns into what the rule is. And so in elders meetings, people would be discussing things, and the first rule would be, well, let's go and see what the scriptures say. If the scriptures don't say it, then you go by what does the book, what does the letter say? And even though the book and the letter may say nothing about it and have biblical proof to it, that then becomes precedent, and it just sticks until someone changes their mind later on. But it's just so rule-based. And one of the funny things I remember after I had woken up, I was still in like PMO phase. I was in a conversation where someone was speaking to someone else who wasn't a witness. And they actually said, the witness to the non-witness said, we're not an organization that likes to make rules about things. And I was sitting there just kind of like, what are you talking about? And I didn't jump in because I was still trying to play it cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh no, I think there's like a little bit of a lag between our connection. Yeah, but yeah, I was like, it's just, I was like, okay, yeah, you actually don't know how it works behind the scenes, and you're kind of gaslighting yourself because you know how it is in the congregation anyway.
Well, but that's literally what the governing body and the helpers and those on the broadcast and morning worship programs will say. I did a video that involved modesty recently, and I think one of my favorite little things about making videos is how easy it is to know that I'm going to be able to find a clip to support what I'm saying here. Like, I know, like, okay, I was like, they always say, like, we're not an organization that makes a list of rules about blah, blah, blah. But then, of course, except for all the secret rule books that we have that you get to on various states, like at various stages of the organization. That's one of the, sorry, there's like a million threads I kind of want to pull on here. But while I have you, one of the things I wanted to play from your video, but now I've got the real thing right in front of my delayed
Oh, the video is
face.
better than the real thing.
Not true, sir. I disagree. No, you're right. The thing that I think is really striking for a lot of us who wake up, who were not elders, reading this for the first time, is just the discovery of all of these weird rules about reporting child sex abuse cases. And you said something in your video that I thought was really, really good. You directed it towards elders, and you basically kind of said, if you're an elder watching this, you're probably like me, where you think like we are a part of a loving organization that really cares. They're always going to give us the best advice. So everything in this book is just a part of that loving organization. And that was a really interesting way of looking at it. Could you expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I was trying when I was thinking about like putting that together and scripting and the whole thing out. I was like, I have to word this in such a way of like, okay, put myself what I have expected, what would make the most sense to me, and be like, okay, this is someone who actually knows how I think about this. How do I view it? Because those were the exact same views that I had, the legal advice that we had to go through, the times that I had to call the branch with things. And so trying to do that and to not scare them off. And granted, people are going to get scared off anyway, but I was trying to soften it to where it's like, our view as elders, and the view that I had was that, okay, it doesn't matter what happens. Jehovah's behind it. So he has the best legal team in the world. They're going to do it. Because all you ever hear about are the propaganda pieces about all these court cases that they win. You have no idea about how often they lose or how often they have to settle out of court. So you just don't think about it. And the problem is that because you have that viewpoint, it shuts off a common sense part of your brain of like reading through the child abuse things. When I was like that guy, Kevin Bowditch, who I included in the video, where he's up on the stand and they asked him, well, what responsibility, what ability do we have to protect all the children? And when the council came back and said, well, you can report it to the authorities. When I first heard that, I had that same reaction myself. I know other elders had that same reaction where our mouths just dropped open and we were like, oh my God, why did that not even come to my brain? And it's because the organization, it shuts that section off of your brain. Once you start placing all your trust over here, you lose that common sense factor. And thankfully you can get it back once you're done. But that's why it's so nefarious.
Yeah, no, that's I really like that you included that, because I think one of the things that's easy to lose sight of for myself, like the further away from it you get, the more you have your current perspective. And it can be kind of, I don't know if it's difficult, but it definitely takes like a conscious, like stepping back to be like, how did I justify this at the time? Because it's really easy to just demonize any elder who would read this book and not immediately be like, what the hell is wrong with this organization? To be like, well, they're just stupid, and that's, it really just isn't, it's not like a fair way of interpreting the way that cults train your brain over years and years to think and lock out parts of your own brain. Like when you think that you are a part of God's organization and that Jehovah is directly organizing everything, which I certainly believed, it doesn't pop into your brain that there might be a better way of doing something than God. And I think that's how I always justified those things to myself.
Yeah. And and I've had this conversation with a few other elders as well, that like, had I known that that was the case, that we were legally liable for this advice that they gave us, um, that would have scared me. I don't know if it would have necessarily made me turn down the appointment at that time. But it would have definitely made me back out of any case that came up like that and say, hey guys, I'm not comfortable doing this. And that's why I wanted to make that be the principle that, that forms like basically 80% of the whole video, is that because I'm like, I want you to know and to be scared as you should be of how I would have been scared had I known this stuff.
Yeah, and let's get into this a little bit before I let you go, because I know that your time is limited and precious. We're only given so many minutes on God's green earth, God's green flat earth. We have
got one of those comments as well.
I know, every once in a while I'll bring up flat earthers and someone's like, well, hang on a second. I mean, how do you I don't know. The thing that you brought up that is really clear when you kind of are more informed about how the organization handles these cases in the courts is that the whole thing is really set up to throw the local congregations and elders under the bus. So what are things that stand out to you now in the Shepherd's book? And I know that some of this is in your video, which I'll make sure I link to once this is done. I'll put it in the description. What are some of the ways in which the higher ups who write and publish this book try and pin these systemic organizational crimes on local elders?
I think the biggest part of it is just the anonymity aspect of, they don't put anything down in writing. Now, from a practical standpoint, with how the laws work, I understand that they can't put a blanket statement in the elder book of this is what you have to do, because laws do differ between states, between countries. So I understand that specific aspect, but what really stands out to me is that nowhere does it say you should encourage them to go to the police, even if you are hampered by clergy privilege. Let's say that you actually find out about, like, an abuser comes to you and says, hey, I did this. Depending on where you live, that then can tie the elders down to where, like, they can't say anything about it legally. So, if that's the situation they find themselves in, they're kind of stuck. But nowhere in the book does it then say, okay, for the victim, hey, we do encourage you, if you at all can, please go do this. Nowhere in the publications where, like the Great Teacher book, where it talks about safety for children and other publications, it doesn't ever say, hey, you should go to the authorities. So that's a whole thing that gets left out. But the anonymity part, I think, is the biggest thing, that they don't want anything down in writing. Whenever, like I said, whenever I called the branch, I never had any idea who it was that I was speaking with. I had to call on multiple occasions for different issues. But for a couple of times it was related to CSA that I mentioned in the video. I had no idea who this individual was. If you try to ask, they will basically dodge the question and be like, well, that's not important. That's not whatever. So that's just a major red flag, that even when I was going through that, it didn't even occur to me that, oh, wait a minute, this is kind of odd that they're getting all of my information, my baptism date, my age, how long, when was I appointed, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't even make sense. And then if you get letters back and forth from the branch, you don't even know who you're getting letters from.
Right.
Now, I didn't have to get one of these myself that I recall, but tons of the other elders that I know did, where they get like the 3-letter codes of who from that desk is writing to them. And it's like, even in these letters, you don't know. And I had a conversation with, I kind of went back and forth with Mark O'Donnell. I had him kind of like double check some of the things that I had in there to ensure that I had it correct. And he made a couple of additions in there, which is why I added the line of, like, sometimes you actually, in very serious cases, it may be that you'll end up finding out and the lawyer will contact you directly, but that seems to be fairly rare. And it was certainly the case that for the guys that were in Illinois, they had no idea who they were speaking to, and didn't know that they weren't speaking with a lawyer.
Yeah. So okay, let's for those who don't know, and I think most probably watching this right now do. But for anybody in the far flung future, when the elders, and we'll look at this at some point. The direction in the Shepherd Book, if an elder becomes aware of a case of CSA in the congregation, uh, they are encouraged first to immediately call the legal department. They're encouraged to call the branch of Jehovah's Witnesses, basically. And who you talk to is basically somebody who will give you. Do they give you a name at all, or do they just give you a first name? Like when you're calling,
I didn't even get a first name. There's
you
no
didn't get a
name
first name.
whatsoever. It's just like, oh, at least that I recall. I do not
Yeah.
ever remember getting a full name. They get to stay totally anonymous. I even had another guy who was an elder, who posted in the comments and was like, "Yep, I can verify this." He's like, I even asked the guy, and I thought I knew who it was. And now, granted, I don't know who this elder was, so I can't really vouch for his story. But if I take it at face value, he was like when he asked who it was, the guy basically completely dodged it and is like, well, that's you are mistaken. I don't know who you think you're speaking with. Kind of a tone.
Yeah. And the assumption certainly is that you were talking to a lawyer or somebody, very knowledgeable about the law. But just as often, you might be talking to a paralegal or just some elder who they've trained and, they let them answer the phones.
Yeah.
There was a question specifically directed at your expertise, Matt, from My Little Pimo, one of the great rising stars in the XJW community. I don't know. I like to adopt the NPR voice sometimes. Matt and Jake, what is your take on why they don't just update the book to say call the branch and the police like they do when someone vandalizes a Kingdom Hall? This is something that you brought up in your video. Like if you look at the Shepherd Book as to what the protocol is for vandalism of a Kingdom Hall, you call the authorities and you call the branch. But the call the authorities part does not exist for the CSA thing. They are entirely telling you call the legal department, and they will tell you whether or not to call the authorities. Why don't they do that? I guess is the question.
I think it's twofold. I think the first part is they really could get in legal hot water if they did obtain this in a confession. Now, granted, that's a law that needs to change. Like religions need to have that done away with. Period. No one should have that kind of secrecy when it comes to the safety of children. So that should be done away. Period. But I do understand from that one specific aspect of why they might not say, "Hey, go call us first, and then we'll sort it out." But then the other aspect of it too is just the public image of it. Of you don't want to have any chance of bad PR. Of being able to hear about that. And that's, I assume, probably something that you'll dive into of the new information that had been added to the book about the public information desk or public information department, whatever it's called.
Yes. In fact, let us share the screen, because that is a thing. Yeah. Okay. This is the, so usually when there's an update to the Shepherd Book, as there was in like March or May of this year or something, and then there's another one in late October, early November. They send a corresponding letter like with the patch notes for like, okay, what's been changed, and a lot of it's pretty mundane, but okay, there's a few things about like the PR department, like or public information. I'm trying to remember how exactly they worded. What chapter is it, Matt? Do you know?
The thing there was a chapter under 14, 14 paragraph 8. There's added direction. So if you bounce to it, it'll probably say something about it. But
yeah,
so I read it like super briefly when I saw these notes, so I haven't dug into these like really deeply yet.
Right. So they added a section on what to do if there is potential for media interest in a case involving an accusation of child abuse. And a lot of the additions are if there is media interest in, say, Jehovah's Witnesses' stance on medical treatment, not blood transfusions, you see, just medical treatment. So they can say the thing of like, we do accept medical treatment,
Yeah,
not the one that might save their
I
lives.
want to say that they added a new chapter, like chapter 30 or
They
something, and
did. Yeah, I was
that whole
interested in
thing is
looking at
about
this.
that. Yeah, Public Information Department. That's what it is.
Public Information Department. That's what it is. Okay, let's look at this actually. Let's take this opportunity here. We've had a solid 45 of no nonsense, no bits talking, and that's hard for me,
We've been straight to the point the entire time.
This is not how I do my business. The way I do my business is that there's no business. And by the way, over 200 people watching. Thank you so much. That is super cool. And also a lot more than the average attendance of most Kingdom Halls. So that's a pretty cool thing when you think about it. There's a couple comments that I set aside. This I really like from Kim. My mom was against raffles, reading fortune cookies, and looking at the zodiac placement or placemats at Chinese restaurants. She was a real stickler, and obviously that's lots of fun. Yeah, like this culturally was very similar for me. Like, for a long time, my parents were pretty against fortune cookies, and I think eventually like they let us read them. But I remember like having the experience of going out to eat after a meeting to a Chinese restaurant or buffet or something, and there were like people there who had different opinions on the fortune cookie of it all, and would be like, "Oh, I don't read those. No, I don't, or I don't even eat the cookies because there's a fortune in them."
Yeah, the rule that we had was it was okay to eat it and it was okay to read it, but for some reason there was like the superstition of to make the fortune come true, you had to read it before you ate the cookie. So in our minds, it was like, oh, if you eat the cookie first and then just read it afterward, you weren't participating. It almost like how as long as you don't drink wine at the memorial and you drink it after, you're totally cool.
Right. Yeah. Just get blotto after the memorial, like Jesus. That's really interesting. But like I thought that was kind of interesting because it does point to like the raffle thing. All of that culture is around just kind of this perception you have as a rank and file witness that anything really approaching gambling is fundamentally wrong. When the reality of the Shepherd book is it's kind of like, honestly, as long as nobody's bothered by it, it's kind of not a big deal.
Oddly to let them like lesser or devalue that crime a little bit it's a bit strange. Usually they're going to toughen up on it.
Yeah. And I wanted to shout out, kind of the 1-2 punch here because we had I love every man that leaves wash hair and grows a beard. And then Jenny Bloom says, I grew a beard too, but no one ever cares about that. And I had to shout out chat superstar Jenny Bloom. Always has the best quips. And the pun generator in chief, LOH. Thank you so much for the super chat. So we are not almost done already. God damn it. We made it 45 minutes in without cursing, so I'm allowed to do that. Interesting. Okay. By the way, Lavender Dreams, what a treat. We have so many superstars in the chat. By the way, literally everybody. Isn't that a coincidence that literally everybody in the chat's a superstar? But I remember my family being completely against Zodiac placemats. That's so funny. The placemat thing definitely did not stand out to my family, but the family I usually hang out with was always excited to see it as kids would color the little animals. Yeah. Kingdom Hall vandalism makes them the victims, so they'll have the community feel sorry. Them outing themselves or having CSA among them makes them look like any other religion that also has issues. That's good. That I think is a big part of it. There's kind of a built-in narrative of victimhood with the vandalism thing. That's kind of a good answer. I think that's absolutely right. Oh, okay. when I was 23, I went to a concert, got carded upon entry. I was asked my sign. Thank goodness I had broken the rules and read the horoscope in the newspaper as a kid. Otherwise, I would have missed. Yeah, I only know what my sign is because of my wife. And just one last comment for now, which is from Saddest Salmon. We're going to upgrade you to medium happy salmon by the end of this thing. Hi, Jake. Glad I could catch a stream. I'm not a JW myself. My grandmother and her side of the family is. Your channel has helped me understand a lot more about the organization itself. Thank you. Oh, that's really cool. That has been an interesting thing. I don't know if you've gotten this, Matt, of people who are like, yeah, I have like JW family members. And now I feel like I finally get what's going on. I've had that from a few coworkers who are like, okay, yeah, I don't know anything about that, but I feel like everybody I know has like a relative or a friend of a friend who's a witness.
Yeah, I have. I've come across a lot of that in comments and emails of people, contacting me about it, wanting to know what to do. But even just a couple of weeks ago, someone was talking to another family member of mine out doing a job. They start describing how they were raised, and they ended up saying, "Oh yeah," speaking about me, they're like, my relative also went through something like that, and he's Jehovah's Witness and is out and was an elder, and the person like paused and was like, "That's what I was raised as."
Hey,
and so they kind of like bonded for a little bit on that.
That's great. You know what's kind of been interesting about like now at work that everybody knows my whole situation because I put it all on the internet, is that a lot of people have come up to me and have been like, I was not raised a witness or anything, but just leaving my local church was such an ordeal. And it was really validating to hear that this is actually a problem, right? I've found a lot of people that are from a group called, it used to be called Xenos, and now it's called something else. What is it? Dwell. It's called Dwell.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people from that, and just like Mormons too, and some other local groups. Like that's kind of a cool thing, like everybody has their entryway. Like I know for me, like watching ex-Mormon stuff was really nice for me because it was like I got all of the information but none of the triggering words that made it feel like hard to listen to.
Yeah, some of the first channels that I subbed to when I woke up were a couple of ex-Mormon things, just because of the similarities. It was pretty helpful just to kind of, you guys went through it too. Actually, the first friends that I made when I got out, I was out with a group of people. We start chatting, and I find out that he was ex-Mormon. And I was like, "Hey, I'm an ex-witness," and he was like, "Oh, so you get it," and ended up coming to his place. He invited me over. I ended up becoming friends with their whole friend group, and it was kind of nice. I know some people are a bit gun shy to share the fact that we were Jehovah's Witnesses and all that. And I'm like, I don't generally bring it up like myself, but if someone happens to find out, I'll talk about it. And it's always so interesting to me how they are fascinated by hearing the stories. And we did Thanksgiving, I think this was last year, and at this little Thanksgiving dinner we had, there were like 3 of us who were XJ dubs, one person who wasn't, and we were over at his house, and the topic comes up, and he was like, "Oh, what? I got to hear about it." And so we start telling him stories back and forth, and I'm not really paying too much about what he's saying or doing. We're kind of just talking around, and it seems like every time I look over and I see his face, every time he's just sitting here like this, going like, and his mouth just keeps getting wider and wider. And at the end, I'm like, are we boring you? He's like, this is like, I am just totally shocked. This is fascinating. So sometimes it can be a great conversation starter or to keep a conversation going because people are fascinated by it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about this. This has been the Circle Jerk Corner.
Yeah.
We're just talking about how awesome it is to be an XJW or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Copium Corner.
We can go back to the Elder Manual.
Yeah. But anyway, Elder Manual
or the video, whatever you're doing.
I don't know what the hell I was doing, to be quite honest. I've just enjoyed talking to you. The Elder's Manual. That is not the Elder's Manual. Let's really get the real one up here. That was the letter that came with the Elder's Manual. So there are a few things that I think are kind of interesting on a fundamental level about the Elder's Manual. And one of the things is, I've been on a, and I'll clarify this immediately. I've been on a Scientology kick. Wait, let me finish. I've been reading a lot of stuff from ex-Scientologists. I did a lot of that when I first woke up and stuff. But what I've realized is all of that stuff, like, you know how you kind of you go down the rabbit hole when you first wake up and you're just reading everything, you're listening to every podcast and YouTube video and every interview and stuff. And I'm realizing now, like, I don't know how much of that I actually retained. I feel like it was all just vibes. So now that I'm a little bit more removed from it and I'm interspersing this more with just, reading more fun stuff, I feel like I'm trying to kind of get a better handle on it. And one of the things, I was reading Mike Rinder's new book. He's used to be in the upper echelons of Scientology. Just put out a book in the last couple of weeks about his experiences called a Billion Years, which is definitely worth reading. And one of the things that he gets into that is a core principle of Scientology is that, or maybe just a core reality of Scientology, is that to get more information, you have to move up the ranks. And Scientology is kind of interesting because I felt like, as a witness, that was such an overt example of everything a cult is, that I felt like it was easier for me to justify, like, well, we don't do that. We're not about the money. We don't do X, Y, or Z. But the moving up the ranks to get more privileged information is absolutely structurally how Watchtower works. And this is a key example of that. Like, this is something that you only get if you become an elder, and you have to do certain things to become an elder. And if you're a woman, you can never be an elder at all. So this is like just the existence of this book, and then of course like the branch manuals and stuff, I find to be just really a core example of why this is a cult or high control group.
Yeah, I kind of came to terms with that kind of in a similar fashion, that it's like, oh, well, it's not, we don't do it to get money, kind of like how Scientology did. But in my whole like notes of things of like upcoming videos that I'll be doing and topics to cover, one of the things that I have like written down there is the progression, and I don't know if I'll actually do a video on it, but the progression of becoming an elder, of like how basically to get to the point of being an elder and to get access to this secret information, the organization has to trust you enough that, okay, once he reaches this level and he can see this information, he's not going to bug out. He's not going to talk about it. He's not going to reveal our secrets. So it's like, as you start out as an unbaptized publisher, now when it's time for you to, you've gone through the thing. Okay, it's okay for you to be a publisher now. Then when you get baptized, it's like, okay, we got to go through this OD book. We got to go through a series of questions and make sure you're okay with all of these first. Then you've got it. Then at that point, you become a pioneer and you're getting more and more indoctrination. Then as you become a servant, that's where you really start getting put to the test of like, okay, how well can you handle this kind of stuff? And if you've been doing that long enough, then by the time you get to the spot of being an elder, they're kind of like, okay, I think he can handle it. He's shown that he's okay with the strict discipline that we've shown so far. He buys everything. So now that he becomes an elder, he'll probably stick with it and isn't going to talk about it, isn't just going to walk away and leave. He's going to go along with it, and buy it hook, line, and sinker. So it's like all those steps that you have to go through to prove your loyalty and your worth to get to that point.
That is so good. Please make that video, because that sounds really, really sounds very valid.
I don't need to make it now, actually. I'm just going to clip out this YouTube thing, and I'm just going to post this.
Sometimes I'll do that. We're like, I'm thinking about making a video about this, and then I'll just say everything I need to say. And it's like, oh, apparently that only would have taken 20 seconds. And that's why TikTok exists. Good comment from Lil here. I had to convince myself when I first went to read the Elder's Manual I'm allowed to read the entire Bible, so why can't I read all information about the Bible the society publishes? And yeah, the one bun called her out for the society. Yeah, 90s kids know.
Yep, that was changed.
I really like that though. I mean, that's a really great line of reasoning. It's absolutely true. Let me actually speaking of things that we want to make videos about, one of the big things I've been wanting to revisit is the very first thing I made, which is Witnesses being a cult. And in addition to it not being a good video, I want to revisit it because my perspective on like cults and how we talk about cults has changed a lot since reading more about this kind of stuff. And you had a really good video recently on, how to talk to witnesses and whether or not to even use that word. I'm kind of interested, just I guess this is kind of an aside, but it ties into this larger conversation. But like, how do you feel about using the word call and like the utility of that word?
So if I'm speaking about it to someone who's not a witness, I don't mind using it. I'll just say cult or high control religious group, pretty much interchangeably. But I will never use the word cult if I'm speaking with anyone who's with witnesses. Now, granted, I don't have that many conversations anymore with active witnesses. But I kind of learned, even right from the beginning, I knew not to use it just because it's so problematic and really kind of misunderstood by a lot of people of what it actually is. So
Hmm.
I definitely endorse not using that word, and which is why in that video I kind of say instead of focusing on the word cult, leave that part out of it and just say, okay, well, what are the bad things about groups like that? Why do you view this particular practice as negative, or that one or this one? And get them to recognize and agree that, oh yeah, that could be harmful. And then at the end, you could tie it back in and say it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't use it with a PME.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I actually, so a lot of people in chat here are saying, high control group, which I agree with, and I like that term because the word cult has a lot of just like instant biases that come with it, and like things that pop in your head. Like, when I think of a cult, I think of Scientology. We're not like Scientology, blah blah blah. And of course, like what every cult does is acknowledge the fact that some people think they are one. There's a new season of that Nexium series going on HBO Max, and the way it opens
Oh,
up
okay.
is great. It shows an internal video from Nexium, basically from I don't remember her name, but the woman who's kind of Keith Raniere's right hand person, saying like, the word call is this word that people use to demonize groups they don't like. And, witnesses obviously do the same thing. But high control group is really good because when you hear the term high control, you're immediately like, I guess there is a lot of control. Or like, is there a lot of control? Like, it kind of makes you think like, uh-oh. I do think that can be an effective term because people immediately are starting to think to themselves like, well, wait a minute, how much control does this group have over my life? Yeah. Good.
Yeah,
Let me talk
I
this out.
I did have one experience which I won't go into of speaking with a therapist and with someone else involved, and I described it as a high control group, just so that I wouldn't use the word cult, and they still did not like that at all because it obviously has negative connotations to it. But then it's like when if being asked about it, of like, well, this is what they do, this is what happens when you leave. I totally understand it. Why my friends and family are shunning me and have nothing to do with me again. It's simply because I don't believe. And the problem is, if they were to try to be friends with me, they would actually be excommunicated themselves. So it's totally
Yeah.
okay. I understand it. And so I had to kind of explain to the therapist how it works. And, it's kind of like you can't really combat that once you describe the aspects of the control and how it kind of works. It's still going to be a term they don't like, but it's less triggering than what cult would be.
Yeah. That's this is kind of my thesis for the script I've been working on for like how we talk about cults, which is like cults conjure the images of sacrifices under the full moon and blood rituals. Like pop culture has a kind of visual that's established for cults, which is like everybody wears flowy white robes. There's usually violence and sex very overtly at the front, or like money scheme. Like there's a lot of I can't think of the word, like stereotypes that come with it. Whereas I definitely use both interchangeably. Oh no, Bo got out. Okay, we'll see how much longer this room stays standing. Oh, Jarvin is apparently the culprit. No, it's all right. But I think like what is good about the word cult is that it is kind of a scary word. And like I had the experience of like getting an apostate email that used the word cult, and that scared me off. But when I started to learn more about Scientology around that time when like Going Clear and all that was coming out, like it did make me start to think about that word and my fear of like, if I was in one, how would I know? Because nobody thinks they're in a cult. And like I think that word, as a scary term, can be useful, but yeah, this is good. Holy Fade. Cult sounds like a cash grab / trap. Control group sounds like an organizational pyramid scheme. Yeah, good deal. People are saying cultish. Good book. Okay. Do I know cultish? Who wrote cultish? Anyway, that's it. And now you're chairman. That's all I had to say about that subject. That's just been like on my mind. I've been like really thinking about like the language of that. At the same time, though, when you have literally like, well, here's the secret book that the higher ups in the organization get. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty culty. Okay, so I had the very unpleasant experience of trying to find a specific section of this document and having to type CP
Words
out in
in.
its entirety.
Yeah.
Which I, even just doing that to find this document saying it didn't feel great. But this, let's see. There's a quote. I'll bet you know what I'm talking about, Matt.
Yeah, it's a different part of the book.
You do know what I'm looking for,
yeah,
it?
where it's not a judicial offense. It just is
like not
it's
like
a
necessarily
you would receive
a judicial
counsel.
offense. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's not like an automatic judicial offense. Shoot, I do want to find it, but I also, for my own sanity, don't necessarily want to be trawling through this document looking for that specifically a bunch.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they're like they kind of go out of their way to say like, okay, so this is something that's kind of interesting, right? That you don't know as a rank and file Jehovah's Witness is that some forms of, or maybe you know this a little bit. I guess some of the publications get into it a little bit that like some kinds of pornography are worse than others in the sight of God. Like imagine Jehovah having that much of like, well, I mean, he was just watching some pretty vanilla stuff. Not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yep.
Really? Is that the way God thinks? I don't know. Aha. Okay, this is it.
It's like I'm trying
to
find it.
I'm not going to say this because I don't know YouTube's rules on
totally
even just. It'll probably flag something.
I don't either.
Yeah, I'm not Vosh over here throwing this out unceremoniously. Although viewing CP is not considered to be child abuse from a congregation standpoint, it is still a serious violation of Jehovah's standards. A person involved in viewing this should be strongly counseled. And, depending on the frequency and the extent of his viewing, he could be subjected to congregation judicial action.
Yeah, that's one of those paragraphs that I think as an ex-witness is very good to be familiar with and have that one kind of in the back of your mind. At least know that it's there, because when it comes up and they talk about like, oh, well, the organization can handle CSA, however they do. And then you're like, okay, well, what about CP? What do you think about that? And then if you were to actually show them what that paragraph says, I think it would really make someone kind of stop and be like, well, kind of a thing.
Right, exactly. Like, it's pretty hard to justify other than like, well, we need to be forgiving of everyone. And it's like, but do we though? Like to that, like that much leniency about about this?
Yeah,
Um,
it's nuts.
shoot, I like legit. It's not like in my okay, there it is. It wasn't wanting to bring up. Can you see this? It just looks like a black screen
I
to
see
me.
a black screen right now.
That's so weird. Okay. So I've got it up. For some reason when I pull up PDFs, it doesn't always like putting it on the stream. But trust me, bro, it says this. I'm going to read the previous I'm going to read the previous paragraph. This is under congregation considerations. And I'll just say CSA instead of the full thing. When discussing CSA from a congregation standpoint, we are not considering a situation in which a minor who is a willing participant and who is approaching adulthood is involved in sexual activity with an adult who is a few years older than the minor, nor, generally speaking, are we discussing situations in which only minors are involved. Rather, we are referring to an adult guilty of sexually abusing a minor who is a young child, or an adult guilty of sexual involvement with a minor who is approaching adulthood but was not a willing participant. And then it gets into, the thing that we were just talking about, which is like, well, viewing that on the internet is not such a big deal. That's one of the more distressing things in this entire book, really. Like, that's really bad. I'm going to try and pull this up again. Matt, talk about why that's bad.
Yeah, the words that they use there, and I know that at some point in time, the questionnaires that went back and forth with the branch, I think Mark O'Donnell's pointed out at some point of how was the minor a willing participant?
Yes.
That whole thing is just, it makes no sense whatsoever. Like, you can't be a willing participant and be a minor. I mean, there's grooming, there's all these things that are involved with it. So that wording is extremely problematic. Now, in some aspects, I can see what they're getting at as far as like someone, a 17 and an 18-year-old. I can kind of get what they're trying to go with. But when you start getting into that ambiguous language, that then makes it to where like, okay, well, what ages are we talking about here? And the bottom line is, if you have any questions, if anything like that happens, just report it either way. Let professionals kind of do this. And this was an issue that I, myself and another XJW were talking about this today of like, my problem isn't that it happens. It isn't that well, of course it's a problem that it happens. My issue with the organization and how they handle it isn't necessarily that they've handled it wrong in the past, because these policies, these are things that society as a whole is continuing to learn as time goes on. It's going to keep getting better. They're going to learn from their mistakes. But the problem with the organization is the fact that they look at what they did and they're getting suggestions like from the ARC of like, well, this is what you could do to make this better. And they buck against it. They don't want to change. They don't make any recognition, don't say anything at all of like, hey, you know what? We are taking all the advice that we can from the authorities to try to make sure that our children stay safe, that children outside the congregation stay safe. We're really sorry that some of the policies that we've had in the past have like kind of increased trauma. We are so sorry about that, but please be assured that we are working with authorities to make sure everything moving forward is going to be great. We're not going to be perfect, just like the authorities aren't going to be perfect, but you can be sure that we're going to continue to adjust it to ensure safety of children. And the fact that they don't do that and that they instead look back at it and think, we were the best of everyone who was there, that no matter what happens, we are going to keep this 2-witness rule. They don't, what they could do, like take, for example, in the elder book of like, if you want to say that you're so different than the other religions that are in the world, and that you've been, they've been criticizing the clergy confession process, so that clergy penitent privilege of like hiding crimes like murder and abuse. It's like, you claim that you stand out as different, but what if you actually were different? So in your organized book, that could be part of your questions that you go over and say, hey, look, if you commit a crime, the organization, as a congregation, we are not going to shield you from it. So if you commit any crimes that are crimes against other people, especially for innocent children, we're not going to shield you from it, because we do not have this clergy privilege laws like those of Christendom do. We are different. We don't shield you from that. If they would put that in there, that would be something that they could be proud of, and then they could act on it, and it would take that entire question mark away, to where,
Yeah.
hey, it doesn't matter what you do, we're going to report it because we're different than other religions.
Yeah, and I do apologize to people watching my, because I really probably should have given a content warning before reading something like that, because it really is pretty fucking upsetting. And you like, why be this didactic about this? Like, what? And I think the one bun really gets to the heart of it, which is that it normalizes grooming. Like, there is a culture in the religion, among a million other problems they have, but it is not uncommon for some 30-year-old or above to marry an 18-year-old girl. And I saw it happen, where there was some freaking 35-year-old guy who started dating a sister who I knew when she was like 17. Parents knew about it, endorsed it, because he was like a former Bethelite kind of guy, like somebody who was exemplary in our area and was one of the, like, a real golden child. Need greater sister, married this much older guy, and her elder dad signed off on it, approved it, because it is part of the culture that you have these kind of lascivious older guys being predatory towards younger women, and not even always women, because people who have this sickness will be predatory towards anybody. They'll use their positions of power to abuse anyone. But it really is it just shows, like you were saying, this is such an easy way to just say, like, there's no way for a minor to consent. This matter, it is very clear. If you commit a crime, you commit a crime. Easy. We're gonna leave this one up to people who know what they're talking about. But somebody said, this is what you get when you have a group of people who just, like, literally have no education in social sciences or psychology or whatever, but think that their institution is the best institution on earth. So naturally, whatever kind of thing they're saying is going to be the best. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of ranting, but like, that was one of the most insulting parts of watching those ICSA proceedings. England and Wales investigation into institutional CSA was like, you had all of these other religions and big organizations being contrite and getting up there in front of these panels and saying, we have made these mistakes. We've our policies have hurt people, and we're trying. Here's the things we're doing. And then you have Watchtower comes up, they stroll up with Paul Gillies, and they're like, we have always been ahead of the curve on this stuff. You can go back to magazines we published before. We're not like these other churches with their Sunday school. Like, they still brag about these things. And this, when you look at their secret fucking cult manual, is the kind of stuff it says.
Yeah, it's infuriating.
I got a pee, so you take the reins.
Oh,
you ran now.
Do what you need to. Yeah, I'm one of the things that's kind of well, to go along with infuriating for me again is I'm on my third run of having to watch the ARC right now. I did it when I woke up. I did it probably a year after or so, and now I've got kind of a project that I'm going where I mentioned it in the last video that I did of linking timestamps into the videos where you could click on it and it would go to the video in the ARC of where a certain quote was made, along with where to find it in the actual transcripts. And it's so infuriating having to listen to all of these Watchtower players again. And I think I'm like in day 5 or 6 now of going through it, and I'll just keep rambling until he gets back. But I was speaking to someone else about how it's funny to be watching Angus Stewart as he's there asking through his questions, and it's basically as he's getting through each one, he's like, yeah, I'm about to throw this in your face now. And man, it was just, it's just terrible to watch how those guys are with it. And yeah, oh good, I can stop rambling now that he's kind of walked up. But yeah, it's been a fun project. I'm kind of I'm looking forward to finishing it, but it's not a fun topic. I think
Hello, it is.
There you go.
I was muted, but no longer. Hey, thanks for hanging, Lavender James. It was super good to have you. Sorry you tuned in for the most triggering stream I've ever done. But this is I tell you what, I think I do want to catch up with chat a little bit. I want to try a thing because I don't really know what else we can super glean from this book, to be honest. I feel like in the abstract we've kind of touched on a lot of the problems with it, unless you have any
the changes that they made to it, that we had kind of gone back and forth on. Most of them are just mundane. They're kind of, a few of the new interesting ones, like the Public Information Department and all that. But it's still just kind of funny that, here we are, the day that it gets released to witnesses, at least I assume, here apostates get it on the same day. It's now up on a, I can't remember his Twitter handle or the name of the website. Coming Out of My Cage has created a wonderful site that now has the elder books on it, which are searchable. So it's you don't want to download all that stuff. I've been using it to find quotes from videos and publications, and whoever it is has been doing some fantastic work. And they deserve some praise.
Yeah, can someone in chat help us out with that? Because I also don't JWS library. Yeah, it's really, really good. It's really great the way they've done it. So like all the videos on jw.org obviously have like captions. And so what this person did is like, not only does it have like literally every publication, but they've imported all the like I think at this point, like at least all the English captions for all the videos on the website. So like when I've been working on this video about shunning, like, sometimes you'll like half remember a quote from a video and you'll be like, I know there's some video that talks about this, but there's no way to like search video. So it's a really, really good resource. And it's also like visually, like it looks exactly like Watchtower Online Library. It's pretty great. So big shout out to that person. It's Coming Out of My Cage, right? Something like that. And then, okay. I did actually pull up the public information thing because I did forget that is that's kind of interesting. Let's look at this. Public Information Department. Is it showing up on the screen?
Yeah.
The Public Information Department, the PID, officially represents Jehovah's Witnesses to government officials, academics, the media, and other entities. The PID's responsibility is to assist in providing accurate information about our beliefs, activities, and history. Boy, oh boy. Let me
what a miserable department to be in.
Miserable and just fucking false. Like hopefully Monday, come hell or high water, I'm going to release this video that rebuts that like 800-page shunning document they put out when the Norway stuff was happening earlier this year, which has really gone downhill for them, is just the amount of times that they just straight up lie. They just will lie about what their beliefs are because like it's just like what they will tell the press and what their paid stable of so-called academics will say. like goes contrary to what is literally on their website and what is literally on the Watchtower online library. So it's just the lie department. PID, more like
Yeah.
piss.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, but for colloquial purposes, I don't know why they don't just like stand up and say, "Hey, yeah, this is our policy. You should be proud of it. If God's the one that's commanding you to do this or that,
Yeah.
just be proud of it." And it totally highlights the fact that they just don't trust in Jehovah or the Holy Spirit at all. Because it's like if you did,
No.
you would be like, "Hey, no, this is what it is." And even if, like in Norway, we get our government subsidy taken away from us, we don't need that anyway because God's going to make sure that we have all the money that we need. We could have every government make us lose our tax exempt status. They could lose any subsidies that we get, and we would still come out on top because Jehovah's the one helping us. Like the fact that they don't do that shows their true nature.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that I kind of point out in the conclusion of the video is like for a document that is supposedly just a comprehensive rundown on what they actually believe about shunning and what scholars say and blah blah blah. Why isn't it on the website? Why isn't this available to elders? If it's literally just a compilation of what their publications say, obviously, like the organization, they publish stuff about court cases on the website, and it's because it would show the members that they literally are willing to lie about what their beliefs are if it makes them appear more savory to government officials.
Yeah,
it's blarg. It's a real blarg situation, I have to say.
and that was one of the conversations that I had with someone on my during my time of leaving, where they got upset at something that I did, which is voting. Found out that I had voted, and I was like, okay, I square away these two Watchtower articles for me, and I sent them the ones where it's kind of like, oh, it's up to your conscience. Whereas every witness knows it's not up to your conscience. You will be disassociated if you do that. And when I shared the articles, I was like, so square these away for me. Which one's right? And he's like, how do you explain it? He's like, I don't know. I can't tell you. And then I was like, okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to do some little bit of research, and I want you to find out what the organization tells to governments and to courts about voting, about disassociation, and about how they treat disfellowship people. Let me know what you find out. And they were like, okay, I will. I never heard from them again.
No way. Yeah, they're like, it's just no. Yeah, because they're, I did this in my head. Like you're doing this like calculus of like, okay, well, other the upside, like what's the upside for me here? I find out that my religion is lying about stuff, and then I have to change what I believe. That sounds hard. I'm just going to assume that they're not lying, and then I just get to stay safe and warm in my religion blanket.
Yeah.
I want to try something, and it may involve kicking you.
You kick
fuck
me out
of here.
As you kick me out as quick as you need to and as far as you can.
No, I love you more than anything. No, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
I love you too. I mean, our messages before this, were very
very sentimental and meaningful.
Yeah.
No,
Christina has to know nothing.
Yeah, hey, bleep. No.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, friend. I'm pretty sure I've said it multiple times. It's fine. Hey, anybody that made it this far has to explain when they're like, okay, so at timestamp 128, a name is said, and they're like, why did you watch it that far in? Oh yeah. Hey, what's your YouTube channel, Matt?
It is called The Falling Tower.
The Falling Tower. What a great name for a channel. It sounds like a person might even be able to gather that it's about witness stuff and not just a weird assemblage of words like what I did. Thank you so much for coming on. This was so great and so much better than anything I could have done rambling by myself. However, that is what I'm going to do.
No, keep on rambling, kick me off, and you keep going. Do what you need to.
I'm going to ramble, but I think what we're going to do is I'm going to try and do a viewer invasion, which is a term I just made up and I copyright currently right now. But thank you, Matt. You've been fantastic. Please like and subscribe to his channel, and yeah, watch these new videos he's got coming out. They're really good. Like they've really renewed my interest in being like, ooh, I want to talk to some witnesses and think about this stuff more. So
Well,
thank you,
good.
kind.
Thanks for having me on, and I'll catch you later.
Play your cards right. All right. Talk to you later.
All right. See ya.
All right. I don't know what a lot of the things I said meant just now, but let's try. It's definitely not like that. I don't know what anybody else might call it, but I'm calling it the viewer invasion. Okay. I don't know if this will actually work. No, Kath, I don't think that's right. I think I coined it right now. And I think canonically, I think that is exactly what happens. Hey, yeah, I'm not great at math, but it seems to me that more people could like this video. I don't think that's the takeaway. I think the takeaway is that Matt did amazing, and I sat here and listened. I sat my white ass down and listened. So here's what I'm going to do. This will be a disaster, but it'll be a disaster, but I thought it might be fun to do some calling, and we can talk about this. We can talk about literally anything, including being mean to me, I guess, if that's your whole situation. But I'm having a real good time streaming, and it's allowing me to procrastinate on other things that I probably should be working on. So I'm going to post a link in the chat, and oh boy. Let's see. How is this going to work? I can post a link in the chat. And I think what will basically happen is it'll probably only allow like 10 people in here at a time. But I'll kick off. Yeah. Yeah. Do you love it so much, though, that you're going to partake in the viewer invasion? Yeah. Here's what I think. We have a solid hour and a half show. Why not ruin the rest of it with absolute chaos? Actually, I'm thinking, no, it's too late now. This is already going to be on the channel, so there's no point in me starting another stream. This is canon for life. Whatever happens here today is between us and God and the Christ and the Holy Spirit. Hey, you know what? It is classic chaotic bisexual. And I tell you what else is classic is Charlie Bright. What's up?
Yo, how are you? We've talked a couple times, and it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Any relation to Gary Bright, by the way?
Not that I know of.
Okay, well, good. That means I didn't dox anyone.
Thank goodness. You can dox me all you want. I strive for contact.
Now I'm going to try and play this like a mean radio host. So
they want to talk like a Don Imus there or something like that?
We've got Charlie Bright on the program. What do you got, Charlie?
Well, Robin,
what's your question?
Let me tell you something else I do on the toilet.
Yeah, we're bringing it back to the toilets. Yes, by the way, love the hair. Love Biden-Harris posters.
Oh, you want to see some? Let me show you something that's really funny.
Oh, no. The chaos has begun. Oh, shit. I think he's got an Emmy and an Oscar. What is this?
First of all, they are not real. They are knockoffs, but they are to size and weight.
You should have. I think you should have lied to this.
This is the best $800 I ever spent.
What are they for? What are your honors, sir?
Oh, I won this for producing Green Book. You're welcome.
That's amazing. I didn't know that anybody produced Green Book. I just thought it showed up one day on the big screen. Great. Well, is there anything you had on your mind?
Justify that. What's that?
Is there anything you had on your mind?
I will say I want to preface this by saying I'm not former an XJW. I was basically raised in. My father was Jewish. My mother became a lapsed Catholic at the age of 8. And
she lapsed at the age of 8.
Yeah, she was in Catholic school in a chapel class, and the nun was talking about Christ and him, revealing his prophecy or whatever. And my mom just went, "We're getting there, though, Minmus. We're getting there."
Yeah, people are saying no EGOT. And now I'm wondering why I gave you so much praise.
And my mom was just thinking to herself, if Jesus were around today, they'd throw him in a fucking asylum. This is horseshit.
Yeah. True.
And my father passed away, and my mom is like this Long Island, New York girl, and so it's already like, even though she was raised Catholic, like everyone's culturally Jewish. So I was very much raised very much an agnostic thing, and then in high school I went to a Unitarian church, which was fantastic.
Okay. And that's where you have to have one ball, right?
One ball? No,
Yeah.
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
No, we're the hippy dippy church. That's the hippy dippy church. And it was great because I was there for high school, and they were a fantastic resource as and support network as I was coming out, which was so wonderful to have. And the thing that I'm curious about, and I really went down this rabbit hole of Jehovah's Witnesses and all this stuff about them like a couple months into the pandemic. So that's how I started following you and a couple others, not so much Lloyd anymore. But
damn.
What I'm curious about, though, and I do have a genuine question here. So I know right now you are in a mixed marriage in the sense that I know that your wife is still. You said your wife is still a member. You are not. What is the attitude in the congregations when someone who is in the congregation as a practicing member marries someone who is not a Jehovah's Witness?
Okay, so your question is like, if somebody who is in the congregation, like if my wife had married me in my current state now as somebody who's not a witness, okay.
Yeah, or maybe even just, I don't know if there's something for like other religions.
An unbelieving spouse, they would say. Yeah, see, anybody who is not a witness is considered an unbeliever. So even if you married, like a Catholic, they would be called an unbelieving spouse.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a very good question. The attitude is definitely negative, and I there are lots of talks about it. In fact, will it pull up the Shepherd book? But there's actually a whole section in it about like trying to discourage people from. I'm sorry, mate. Unbelieving, mate. It's an unbelieving mate situation. Cash apparently must have one because they had the reference.
It makes it sound like you're a cast member on some sort of children's TV show, an unbelieving mate.
An unbelieving mate. Yeah. I don't believe in the power of Teletubbies hard enough. Yeah, it's like it's kind of condescending, like, oh, poor person. They married an unbeliever. Their life must be so hard. So you're treated as kind of a second-class citizen. And if it's somebody, a lot of the organization is based on optics. And so if a lot of people know about it ahead of time, like, so if you're like a kind of a prominent member of the congregation, and then people figure out that you are dating an unbeliever, you could get disfellowshipped for it if if like they find out like you're having sex or something. If not, they might even do like a marking talk. Yes, you might be marked. And a marking talk is a very weird, like public shaming thing that they do, which is an elder will go up as part of the midweek church service, and they will be like, okay, we have to discuss an issue in the congregation. What if we are tempted to date an unbeliever? And they will give a talk that clearly will reference the fact that somebody is doing this in the congregation, and that it is bad, and that we should watch our association with this person, but they won't say who it is. But everybody will know who they're talking about.
So do you watch, I'm curious, are you a fan of The Simpsons?
Yes.
Like, the classic era.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, there's this one where, like Ned is just in the shit. Ned Flanders his life is in the shitter, and like everyone thinks that he's done something wrong, and Reverend Lovejoy goes, "Before I get started with today's sermon entitled What Ned Did."
Yes, it is exactly that. It is what Ned did. Exactly. Soft shunned. That's a good way to put it. So that's definitely a thing. But there's also a thing where like there are definitely people that you will meet in the congregation who are like married to unbelievers because maybe they converted after they were already married. But then their spouse.
That was actually what I was going to follow up with. That what's it like if you could if they win if they convert a congregant, but that person's spouse doesn't.
So that person will like be bummed. They'll be love bummed. Bubba the love bum.
I think that goes against the magazine.
That does. It does. You're not
unless the one is 17 and the other 18 or 19, and then in that case it's cool.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yes. Unless. Yeah. Okay. So like the unbeliever will also get love bummed. They will get like the elders will like try and be super nice, like invite them to congregation picnics and stuff, and kind of try to convert them. So that is that. And I will end your question there because we have people waiting in the wings.
Okay. Can I just ask one quick follow up?
Sure. I immediately conceded.
For people that say that someone is a Jehovah's Witness, they marry someone who's not a believer. When they start having children, do the children get like a target on their back of like, we need to bring them in?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And it would be pretty, I like for the witness, it would be pretty unfathomable that they be raised as anything other than a witness. So the children will definitely be targeted. The congregation will try to arrange studies like with the kids. Like they'll try to do like invite the families, invite like, let's say like the believing wife and her kids to like family worship of like a house of like a good marriage. So the kids will definitely have a target on their back. Like, yeah.
All right. Well, I will back out and let someone else come in here and waste your time. So
very good. No, this was delightful and not a waste of time. However, you are eliminated. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. Oh, look, and he removed himself. This is great. Okay, so we have next up on the docket. I'm going in order of appearance, like an old Hollywood movie. Finishing a drink and perhaps smoking a cigar. It is CJ. What's up, CJ?
Hi, Jake. You're an idol to me, dude. And I got a question for you.
Okay.
Why, like this last convention, they had a nurse talk about she seeked a therapist. And I don't understand, like, what goes through a JW's mind when they know someone got a degree before the truth, but now they got in it, and now we praise them for their skills they brought to the watch. Like, thank you for bringing your skill set, but we can't get that skill set. It's just like they put that in the convention, you know. I'm like, and we don't know if she got it before or after she was in it, but I'm sure it was before. Maybe I don't know.
Well, so not necessarily. That is something that seems to be considered with like culturally acceptable. Like I knew a lot of witness sisters who were my age that went to nursing school, and that was seen as okay. And there might even be a morning worship program with Tony Morris when he's talking about higher education, and it's the one where he talks about like the better the university, the greater the danger. He might even in that very talk mention nursing as something that is okay to do. But to your point, it is something that I don't know how intellectually they thread the needle of like, we need lawyers, but we can't ask people to go to law school. So we just have to really hope that we convert somebody who already is one. Yeah, I don't know how like they're managing that in their brains.
And it's like, if everyone went to school, got a degree, you'd have more donation money. But they say, oh, if you go to school, you're going to like fall out. You're going to lose your faith. Like, what, dude? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, but
yeah. And, you know, obviously like the entire structure that they have now of like videos and apps and digital media is all like very like the only reason why anyone's able to do that stuff is because a bunch of people got IT training and because the internet was created by people who were definitively not Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
So they're definitely benefiting a lot. Like obviously all these advancements in bloodless surgery are all from doctors who just earnestly care about their patients not dying and wanted to try and find a compromise. You know, it's not from the hospital liaison committee inventing some,
It's mind-boggling because if the whole world was J-dubs, there'd be no doctors, there'd be no anything advancing. But anyway,
it would be the Middle Ages and we would all die at the age of 32 from, like headlights that eat through our skull or something. But thank you for calling in. This is a call, in my opinion.
One last thing. I really want to get your take on.
Everyone gets one last thing, apparently.
What do you think about the Pennsylvania cases, like the new ones that just got like the 4 people that got charged? Is like progressing a lot? What do you think? Like,
I don't know enough about. I need to read more into it. But what do I think about? I think it's really good that it's getting as much media attention as it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's very telling that like in this Shepherd book, like almost all of the big updates, including this entire other chapter that they added, is about basically a PR department that they're going to connect people with for public information because, the media is picking up on this stuff. They got hit pretty hard in 2022 with like, the Telegraph article series and podcast series and documentaries and stuff. Mm-hmm. I saw that Four Corners documentary on YouTube has almost 6 million views. So we're very soon that thing will have more views than the entire population of Jehovah's Witnesses. So they're definitely fighting an uphill battle.
It's getting air, boy. Like it's really gonna pop off soon. It feels like.
I think so. I think there will soon be a going clear type documentary for Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm certain. But thank you for your time. And you are the weakest link. Goodbye. Hey, I was trying to remove the last guy, and if it isn't Earl.
Oh, hey. I forgot to put that as my name. I was just like sitting here messaging someone. My bad.
I was going to give you more of an intro than that, but I clicked to remove the last person. They were themselves. And then that's why I clicked add to stream.
Oh, good gravy. I'm not going to do like a hostile takeover or anything. Let me just remove ZZ because he's being annoying. Uh-oh.
Wow, ZZ
Did my camera F? Uh-oh.
People, we only have one person waiting in the way. Hey, wait a minute. We have somebody freaking My Little Pimo, get back in the queue. Oh, wow. Earl died. And I know he looked a lot like Wally, but his name was Earl on the thing. Oh, okay, no, he's back.
Or there, ZZ knocked over my El Gato. Anyway, really quick, I just wanted to know if you'd be interested in doing a stream where we highlighted people with like small businesses that did like crafts and stuff that were XJWs.
Hell yeah.
Actually reached out to me and were like, hey, I've written like this poetry book, or I do. It's easy for the love.
ZZ, stop.
When I went to the bathroom, one of my other tasks was to coax Bo out of the room and shut him out because he has a knack for doing that.
Yeah. Cats.
Now, what are you before I say yes to this, which I already did, but what are you eating? Is it a plate of?
This is fresh gnocchi that I made yesterday.
Gnocchi.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fried in bacon fat. And obviously the bacon is put in there, and then I made a fresh pesto with it. So pretty delicious.
Very nice.
With the risotto. I know.
The microphone is directly pointed at his butt. That's amazing. That's a great idea. I've actually had a couple people email me lately that's like, hey, I have X, Y, or Z, and I'm a witness. Would you mind like plugging this? And I'm like, I don't really know how to do that in a super effective way. But
that's where I thought just doing a stream and we just do it all in one big shebang.
Let's put the shout out. If you have oh no, I have this stuck in my head. But yes, let's put out the word, and if people, if you got Etsy or DeviantArt or a small business or something, and you're like, I don't know, GoFundMe or something,
Yeah.
shout us out.
For sure.
And we'll shout you out on our upcoming
And then I thought
XJW Cool People stream.
we could like wrap it in a tier list. I was working on it last night because I couldn't sleep, so I just got up at like 3 a.m. And
So we are going to put a value judgment on everybody's.
Oh no, no,
A tier list.
Imagine if we ranked people like.
Now we are shouting out.
Your drawings suck.
We're shouting out this person's art. However, this is only C tier.
That'd be so.
So really weigh your options before you email us. No, you're talking about something different.
Yes, I was doing like a convention assignment tier list. I thought that one was pretty funny, and then I know we mentioned or talked about it before, but
so good.
The Watchtower stories tier list. So like the ones that you hear repeated of like the wallet always getting returned, all of that stuff. So I was working on that last night, so I'll send it over to you.
I was going to lose my job, or I did lose my job because the convention was coming up, and for some reason I waited until like the fucking week before to tell them.
Like a bozo.
Right, right.
Anyway, that's all I had.
That's a good fucking idea. And thanks for tuning in.
Yes, for sure. I am the Winkest Link.
You are the Winkest
07.
Wink. Goodbye. Oh shit. Okay. Next up, we have. Should I ban him from the student? No. Okay. I just realized when I clicked to boot him that there was a ban option. Is not a new tat. This is the same old tat. Shit though. It's just that tattoos cost money. I really want to get one up my arm. We got 2 people in queue. Real quick, we've got Holy Fade.
Hi, hello.
A goat.
Yes, because I'm Pimo.
In every sense of the word, because you are a goat of the Discord.
Yes.
And of the chat.
Absolutely.
And frankly, right now, I'll say it.
If you're looking for ideas of stories, Watchtower stories, my favorite one that they keep repeating every year. We had a brother in our congregation who was a pioneer and needed wood for the winter to heat up his house. And basically a truck crashed in front of his house and all the wood fell. And miraculously, Jehovah made the truck crash.
Holy shit, that's
and,
so
he
good.
had wood for the whole winter. So instead of saving children, God is making trucks crash.
No, that's really good. That's really good, because that is definitely a thing where like some horrible event happens that ends up benefiting a witness, like the storm that blew in
It's
just
a
the right amount of
miracle.
sand.
It's amazing. Yes, thank you, Jehovah, for almost killing. We don't know if the truck driver died or not. It's not important,
Yeah.
He got some wood, so praise the Lord.
That's a tough one too. Yeah, that reminds me of like another good recurring story, which is like, oh, me and my pioneer wife, we didn't have enough for groceries, and then we opened the door and there was an envelope with $200, or like some old lady died in a train crash and a $200 bill flew from her coat into my hand. That's just from the magazine. I'm just quoting that.
Yeah. Thank you, God, for killing people and reaping rewards for those who preach. Yes.
That's Old Testament Jehovah right there. Did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up, or was it just a very good story?
I do have something. In Wally, I don't know if Wally had the people come back to visit him, but one thing that they mentioned when Wally multiple times repeated the fact that you could you not believe and stay a witness, and he tried repeating it a few times to get a reaction from the people.
Right.
I basically, I was willing to be shunned completely. I was like, I built up the confidence, and I went up to my parents and I told them, I don't believe in any of this at all. There's nothing you can do to convince me. I told them all the points I had. I told them I didn't want to be a witness anymore. I was done, and that I had my letter in my hand, and I was because my dad's an elder, so I'm like, I'm gonna give you this letter, and this is it. This is over. And he said, well, why don't you just fade? And basically, my elder dad said, yeah, if you don't sin, or if we don't know you sinned, you're not going to be excommunicated. And basically, my parents now allowed me to fade.
Wow.
So I don't know, but it's kind of like it's good in a sense that I can keep, my relationship with my friends and family, but at the same time, it's like if the band-aid wasn't ripped off, so the pain still lingers on. I still have effects. Like I was scared to be photographed this Halloween, and I
Right.
still can't show my face on here. It's not really over,
I know, right? That's the
but at
thing.
least I don't have to go to the boring ass meetings.
Yeah. No, that's good though. That's absolutely a thing. And I think that's what my parents expected me to do and, had come to grips with. They were, I think, kind of okay with me being an inactive, unbelieving husband, to my wife. But the second you speak out, it's like, no, I'm okay with accepting intellectually that you don't
Yeah.
believe anymore. But the second
But-
you say anything out loud,
Yeah,
for some
I
reason,
think that's it. But exactly like Wally, I was telling my dad, no, I don't believe. Like I don't believe there is a God up there. Like I was repeating it, expecting him to say something, but I guess you're allowed. So
yeah,
for
that's
some people,
interesting.
might be more intense. Maybe for some people, I guess maybe he might be bending the rules for his own child. I have no clue.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I
Anyways.
like to hear stuff like this because, everybody's situation is different. And sometimes people will be like, oh, if only all the PMO people would stand up. And it's like, man, I don't know. It's just tough. You want to keep contact with your family. And if you can
Yeah.
pull the fading game, then
I'll keep making apostate content. I am working on making more apostate content. I just can't show my face, but I
hey,
do
I
plan
know
on
that.
doing more. Yeah.
I know that struggle. Well, thank you for calling in, good sir.
Absolutely. Always a
Appreciate your
pleasure.
contribution. And you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Now, next we have a very special guest. This is one of our rising stars in the XJW community. This is my little PMO here.
Thank you for that intro, sir.
Hey, anytime.
Oh, go ahead.
It's so good to hear your voice.
Well, thank you. I'm actually in the same situation as Holy Fade there at this point, where we're essentially POMO. My wife has actually publicly disassociated, and my mother told me the exact same thing that Holy Fade's father said. Basically, like, why don't you just fade? Keep quiet about it, and basically that if I become an enemy of Jehovah. Or disassociate or write a letter, she will shun me, but she won't as long as I'm faded.
Now, how do you feel about this? Because a lot of people are saying that this isn't very good. Mostly Wally.
How do I feel about what?
I was just saying, how do you feel about Wally's comment? Do you feel like you should get off?
I mean,
or...
I'm just a little upset that Wally didn't give me any of his gnocchi.
Right? But then you have people saying that this is such a good format that I created today by myself.
So I had a question for you.
Okay.
Two questions, actually. So do you think that in light of the Elder's book, having this update to talk about...
I'm taking these off now that I don't have to read anything because I'm wearing these all day and my head hurts.
So in light of the Elder's book now mentioning like talking to the PR department before talking to anybody, and we've recently seen paid sponsorship by the Watchtower organization, and we're seeing more and more of Robert Hendricks appearing on TV. Do you think there's a wider push that is starting to happen to have a real PR division and be like a publicly facing organization?
Man, that's a really good question. So I've been thinking a lot about that because of all this like ex-Scientology stuff I've been reading, because, they obviously, at the very least in the 90s and probably, kind of like up until that disastrous David Miscavige interview and all that stuff, like they really did want to have more of a public face and like control the narrative. If there's going to be a documentary, let's try and give them a private tour of our place and try and take over the story and change it. But it's not really sustainable. And I think that any journalist worth her salt is going to see through that stuff. So I think like they must know that there's too much objectively damaging information for them to ever really like control a narrative, unless it is like the sponsored content where they can legitimately like control the narrative from beginning to end, or these like puff pieces that go out that they essentially are just providing a script to a local newspaper and be like, hey, here's a freebie for you. So yeah, I think that they're in a really tricky spot of like, they're big enough that, you know, the people know who Jehovah's Witnesses are and everybody knows somebody who's a Jehovah's Witness. But people don't know that much about their scandals, but increasingly they are. And I think they must know that the more they push back, the worse it makes them look on some level. I don't know. They definitely are trying to like, especially with those quotes that Robert Hendricks gives, like trying to say that like we are a normal mainstream Christian religion, but they're so very like overtly not. So I don't know. How do they, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've noticed them very recently in the last couple months doing PR pushes that I've never seen before. And
yeah.
And it happened all kind of at the same time with, you know, Robert Hendricks making more appearances and then sponsored content, and then like mentioning PR for the first time in the Elders book. I can't help but think that there's some like they're establishing a larger PR branch and they're going to start trying to actively, you know, I was pressed for a little while, and like getting things out into mailing lists and having press releases and stuff like that is how you get local journalists who need to fill pages. To give them like little puff pieces they can write something about. We saw that recently when there was that, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses are going back door to door piece that the same thing got put on like 20 different websites, and they could be paying for it, but it's more likely that they put it out as a press release. And if there's empty space in today's paper, there's something they can really quickly write up and use as a draft and maybe interview someone local and add to it. And I think that they're trying to actually like get on mailing lists and do press releases and maybe have a real PR branch.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's, I think they definitely have found a little niche where they realize that like, I don't know, so much of it seems to like be very a tactical play to flood the algorithm with fluff, which is like, I know you and I have both experienced that. Like if you test out the Google News thing, now you will probably find that Pennsylvania stuff at the top. But for a while, like it really was like the first page of Google News was just 20 articles about Jehovah's Witnesses are going back door to door, or there's a convention coming to town, or how are they preaching during COVID times? Yeah, no, it's very strange.
That reminds me, now that you mentioned that, I do want to just tell your audience this, that it's really important to just speak to people and call local journalists. It's shockingly effective because not that many people pick up the phone and just call them. And if you see an article and you just email them and say, hey, I find this objectionable for this reason. Or if you call your local paper and say, hey, you know, you might not be aware of this, but Jehovah's Witnesses have multiple scandals about child abuse, and I maybe know of this personal situation. Because if you really sit down and think about it, you probably know at least one. When I sat down and started really thinking about it, I knew like 6. And I talked to a local journalist about it, and he did some investigations and wrote a piece on it in my local paper. And I think that just going to your local politicians and your local journalists, or even just blind emailing journalists who you see on Google News, goes a very long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you'll get very enlightening responses like that the broadcaster's manager is their wife, and that the person is an elder, and that the wife is also a witness. Yeah. Anyway, that is great. It's a great call to action. And it's something that's really not that hard to do, actually. Like if you see one of those stupid puff pieces come up in your local newspaper, just, you know, email the journalist or tweet them or whatever. Like usually they have their socials listed.
Yeah. And also wanted to ask you, have you gotten any stickers yet?
So I ordered some, and I have not gotten them yet, but I did order some.
Should have used Amazon.
Damn. They've got those drones I hear about.
Yeah, I've been popping them up, and the other day we were in a line for a haunted house, and I walked ahead and I put a bunch of them on the wall where I knew all the people would be waiting. And while I was in line, I heard people talking about it, and
Ooh.
yeah, it was fantastic. I think just telling people Jehovah's Witnesses are a doomsday cult, like just bringing their curiosity up, and they'll Google it, right?
Yeah.
Or just having that thought in the back of their head, so the next time they see a Jehovah's Witness, they think, "Oh, I remember this. They're a doomsday cult." I think that goes a long way toward inoculating people from being sucked in.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you for that. It sounded really dismissive the way I said it, but I really just lost train of my thought halfway through my sentence. I was like, thanks for that. But no, I really, but sincerely, thank you. And like, yeah, you're doing a lot of great stuff behind the scenes, and yeah, thank you for all you do. And say,
hey, I mean, you were the channel that woke me up, so
you're very kind. And I do take credit, and I tell everybody that I meet. I do put stickers up that say that around town, but all right, man. Well, I'm going to let you go.
For the next person.
Well, thank you. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. And folks, it's not just me with a bunch of different bot accounts. We do have women that tune in to the channel, and we've got one. We got one on the line here. Kim.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Dressed for success too.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Had to represent the profile picture.
Yeah. Did you make that, by the way?
Yeah, there was that app going around for a while that was like upload a photo and it did cool filters. So I used it for the free trial and then got rid of it.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do.
It is.
Well, thank you for calling in. What is your question, concern, or query?
I honestly don't know because ADHD brain. But one thing I had thought of that is not really on topic at all, but was the idea for folks that are newly out or PIMO, or I don't know how to pronounce it, but PIMQ. The idea of doing videos of sort of just like how to exist as
that's
a
good.
human being that's not in a cult, because I think that's a big struggle for a lot of us when we first get out.
That's very true, and that is something that I am still learning how to do, how to worldly. That's really good, and you're not the first person to suggest that, so that means it must be a good idea. So I think we've
over the last several days had some interesting controversy in the Reddit news sphere with Jehovah's Witness stories.
Oh yes. Oh shit. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I posted the sorry, someone in chat was like, "Hey, how do I get on?" Well, actually, frankly, I'm probably going to. I got one more person in queue, and then I'll probably end it because I realized I'm going for over 2 hours. And I said a tight 90 earlier, and what I meant by that is
what you 90, meant was you're a liar.
What I meant is that I'm a liar and an apostate. We all knew this going in, of course. Yeah, no, okay. Are you saying there should be a little recap of the news drama?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. No, that is a good idea.
Because it is sort of on point for the discussion of.
You're right. We were just talking about the fluff pieces and media and all that sort of thing. So I don't want to spread conspiracy theories, even though I do it all the time. But there is a thing that happened that was kind of weird where like the r/news removed just like one person who shall remain my little Pimo, like posted the news article about the Pennsylvania case that's going on, and it got removed, and then he got banned. And I like when he messaged the mods, he got muted by the mods, which means like you can't even message the mods to ask what's going on for like 28 days. So eventually somebody else posted the story. I don't remember who that was, but like it got like well over like 100 upvotes. Like it was on it and people were commenting on it, and not just ex-witnesses didn't look like. So I left some comment on it, but eventually it got removed and I got banned from r/news. And so I asked them, I was like, wait, why did I get banned? And then I got muted immediately. And so that was just kind of like, wait, what the? So then like we started looking through, and by we, I mean only people who are not me, and like my little PMO and we're on the PMO and some other people in Discord, we're looking through, and like through the last like 3 years, you can find all kinds of articles about like the Catholic Church and like, what is it? The Southern Baptist Church just had that scandal. And there's, plenty of articles about those that are posted, but the only articles that are ever posted about witnesses are the positive ones that are like witnesses are going door to door. So it raised some question like, is there like a witness like who's on the mod team or like someone who's like physically out, mentally in or something? And it is kind of weird. But the other thing is like, if you Google r/news mods, apparently they do just really suck. So it could just be the people on the internet suck shit. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Do they just suck? Or is there?
It could be both. Little column A, little column B.
Right.
I mean, why not both is our motto. So
why not both? Little column A, little column B, the bisexual platonic ideal.
Little of all the columns.
That's right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kim, for calling in. This was lovely.
Yes.
And people are saying that you won best headgear.
Yes, I saw a comment about this as a head covering, and I'm very curious what would have happened if a sister holds a unicorn hat out as a head covering to lead the group in service. I feel like that would have caused some controversy.
Good. I've always wondered if just like you just don't have anything, if somebody just like pulled like a Kleenex and just like put it on their head, like
they literally will use a napkin. My mom kept a scarf in her service bag at all times just in case.
Yeah, that's
I've heard stories of like a tissue or a book or something. Just gotta really instill that you are beneath. But don't worry, you're equal. It's just different. Different responsibilities. In that you don't get responsibilities.
Just lesser because you have to remember that you're, not a man.
Yes.
So you have to cover your shame of just
with a unicorn hat.
With the unicorn hat. See, I thought you were going to go a different direction with that and say that like you only got through because you had a head covering on. And because you were
that's the reason why I'm allowed in on this stream, because
people don't know this.
Showing my proper submission.
There were several ladies who were in the queue, but I was like, well, they don't have head covering, so they can't. But I saw unicorn head covering, and I thought that's perfect. Finally. Well, thank you. I am sorry to say that you are the weakest link, so I must say goodbye. But
farewell.
Thank you so much for calling in. And we have, last but not least, we have somebody who has changed their name to involve scatological behavior. So I don't know what we're getting into so far. This has not been particularly chaotic. This is going to be the last caller of the night, folks. So this was not, and I'm saying this, and now I'm realizing it's making it sound like I'm encouraging this person to do something chaotic, which is I'm not. Don't do that, please. But orient by the C / orient by the P.
What's up, Jake?
What's going on?
What's up, you beautiful people?
Look at all these beautiful people out here today. And see, look, sometimes men wear head coverings.
I do. It's the only way to get my spirituality in flowing to you and back and forth.
Harvard Law, by the way, is that
true,
it's
Harvard,
or are you a liar? Wait, you went to Harvard?
No, it's the lesser known cousin of Harvard Law.
It is. Oh, Jesus. That's yeah. That's how good my reading comprehension is.
Yeah, I'm actually super nervous right now. I might vomit on stream, so you might have to cut that out, even though we're live, so you can't.
Or amplify it and loop it and clip it on Twitch.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
No, I'm gonna try not to do that. I put together a quick show and tell for all my wonderful friends here. Yeah.
Great.
So some of you might know that I'm in school to try to get into medicine, and so
Harvard.
Yeah, exactly. You know that thing where like you get really nervous and you forget what you're gonna say, and then like your anxiety makes it even worse, and then it just compounds
Only
on
all the
itself. And then
time while I'm doing
it's
this.
terrible.
Yes.
It's the worst thing. Anyway, I have this here.
A human brain.
Yeah.
I assume it could be a cat
Fucked
brain.
it out of my skull. So I wanted to mention this to everybody here. Right here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to point with this. This is not weed, by the way. It's not. I promise.
That's fine. I don't care. I'm pretty sure I smoked a bowl the last time I did one of these live streams, and it's still up somewhere.
Right yonder is the amygdala.
Okay.
And when you experience shunning and ostracism, it literally shrinks your amygdala, and that's your emotional epicenter of your entire self. That's where like you feel your deepest emotions. And so when you experience what a lot of us have experienced, it ends up doing real physical damage to your body, and then you kind of aren't able to deal with really intense emotions anymore. You feel like you're losing your mind and getting panicky more often. But I just want everybody here to know that it does get better. You can rebuild that part of your brain and feel normal again, whether it be by therapy or some kind of little bit of medication. There's no stigma to that.
I'm so glad that you shared that. I didn't know that. That's so interesting. So it really like physiologically like changes the size of your amygdala.
Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy. Yeah, exactly.
That's really good. Yeah, this is your brain on JWs.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like neurogenesis is a thing. Like you can build parts of your brain back up, and there is going to be a time when you feel good and normal again. So I really wanted to share that with anybody that's feeling like they're losing their mind, is that there's better days ahead. So
oh, that's so nice of you to say. What a nice positive thing to say right at the end.
That's
That's
wild
so great.
and crazy, but whatever.
No, that's great. And that's so true. Like I do think about this sometimes. Like I try and like stop myself and think like, okay, where were you like when you were first like waking up and exiting? And like it's so bad. It is the worst feeling in the world. Like it really like obviously like I have my ups and downs, but it is not that bad. It is not as bad as it was. Like, and like the up moments are so much uppier. You know, there's no better way to say it than that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That was great. Well, thank you so much for the show and tell. That was wonderful.
Yeah, man. And then one other quick thing. I know you guys all know about that one, but you know about its little cousin, this one, which is actually arguably can be even more helpful.
Oh, okay. Yes, I do know of it.
Yeah. So
I don't have it on my shelf.
This one's geared towards helping other people that might need help getting out. So
that's great. That's a good rec.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you, sir. And I'm going to say it. You're not the weakest. You win this. I mean, somebody at the end of the weakest link wins the game, right? Somebody is the. Man. What do you even say when they win the weakest link? You were the greatest link.
Yeah. Thanks.
This is the greatest link. Well, thank you, sir. This was wonderful. And you are the greatest link. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you so much. This was so fun. In the future, maybe I'll just do a full like call-in show and do it the whole time, because that was really fun. And yeah, that ruled. He popped off. How fucking great was that? That was like the end of a like a video game tournament. Kicked from studio. I hope that doesn't mean they're permanently kicked. I don't think so. But you know, if you are, I don't know, get good, I guess. You know, you can't just come and win the weakest link anytime you want. This has been great. Thank you so much. I've been feeling a little rusty. I don't know why. Like I've been really focused on writing something, and it's been hard to like get my brain back in like extra W mode. But like some people who were particularly upset by seeing this Elders book, I tell you what, it lit a fire under me. And so yeah, Monday there will be a good old video on shunning, specifically debunking all of Watchtower's apologetic arguments. and their stable of scholars that they wheel out. They wheel out their stable. This is a stable of skateboarding cows, and they wheel them out. Hey, I will say hi to my cat. And I agree. That would be really great. Fucking true, by the way. If in the future, if you didn't get a chance to call in this time, we will do it again, and we'll probably do it on JW Streams. So do subscribe to JW Streams. Me and Wally stream there. And this was super fun. This was great. And if I forgot to shout out your super chat or anything, it's probably because we were talking about something incredibly sensitive, and it would have felt weird and inappropriate to be like, hey, speaking of the most horrible thing in the world, here's $10 from so-and-so. But it is appreciated and is awesome, and it helps me keep doing the channel. I've been feeling bad about all sorts of shit, but now I feel great. So this is great, and please do tell your friends. And you know what? I tell you what. I played the abbreviated intro up top, but I think just for good old time's sake, we're going to close it out with the classic stream intro. Goodbye, friends, family, countrymen, and skateboarding cows.
Okay, it's up. Guess who just walked in? There's Jake.